And that's us live on air for another week of whatever rambling nonsense we choose to come up with. No Bill this week because he's talking to people in real life. I'm always wondering, has he been doing too many hangouts? Is he going to be mid-conversation and try and mute somebody? Does this kind of thing happen? We have Kristin. It sounds like she's in the world's loudest flip-flops walking around the house. And we have Terry. We'll have some more jumping in soon, and in the next couple of minutes I will put the link in the event so that anybody that wants to jump in can. But let me kick off in the time-honoured tradition. Terry, what have you been up to this week?
Oh, I'm actually doing a little writing on SEO this week, couple hours a day. Also to get familiarized with the new local SEO, what's important. I think there's been a lot of changes that, as I look farther and closer, they're and actually, Google was flipping between showing phone numbers and not showing phone numbers. Looks like the phone numbers are back in the SERP, but I think all that stuff, addresses, links to your Google Plus page, all that they've removed is a test. I think it all comes back at some point. I'm hoping at least that, because seeing, if you look at people, how many people are visiting their page, I found that after they started putting that link to Google Plus in the SERP results, getting a lot more views on your Google Plus page. So it made a lot of sense to put a lot of time and effort in there. I would say I'm kind of referring to the local ranking factors, which the guys who write there are usually actually doing local SEO, which is different than the guys who are writing about Google's ranking factors in general. Usually I look at the list of people and I see too many guys that just write about and talk about, but don't actually do SEO or really research it, contributing to that stuff. And I know a lot of stuff like myself and Dave and Bill won't even go in that stuff anymore, simply because we think it's so bogus, right? Like, Danny's a really smart guy, but I don't call him an SEO. I call him a journalist who writes about SEO. There's a difference in my opinion. The guy who's actually in there every day trying to rank stuff. I give him a lot more credit than some guy who talks to people who rank stuff. And you even wonder how much they look at what those people are talking about. I found a lot of stuff that when I looked further, it was, not even close to being true.
Yeah.
For instance, a while back when they said Google was de-indexing all these directories. Well, Steve, who may come in later, knows that industry really well. I've been studying it for 5 years, and I didn't find that. Where did these people get their facts? Well, from some guys on webmaster forums who, where do those guys, how do they work? I mean, they tend to push the envelope, as far as they can. Future proofing isn't at the top of their list of SEO tasks, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
They're live for today and die tomorrow in most cases. Not saying that there aren't some smart guys there, just that when you look at the general discussion there, you can tell there's it's got a certain bent to it, if you know what I mean.
Well, yeah, it's that I have always said over the years, 95% of people who call themselves SEOs and are labelled as SEOs, and even who are known as SEOs, I wouldn't hire.
Right.
You know, and I wouldn't refer anyone to. And that's 95% of all the people that write about SEO, that talk about SEO, that call themselves SEOs, especially the ones that call themselves SEO experts. 5% of the people in the SEO space actually really know what they're talking about to a professional standard. And
I call them posers.
Yep. So it's a tricky thing. I think it's also difficult that some of the ones that are good don't toot their horns that much. A lot of the people that people talk about are the ones who put a lot of time into getting talked about rather than a lot of time into doing the work and knowing what they're doing.
Yeah, and I was reading something today, and it was a whiteboard by the Moz where they basically said, yeah, all that stuff we said about social signals was maybe a little misguided. Well, SEO 101 tells you if it's not indexable, it's probably not much use to Google. And when you start looking at a lot of social sites, there's very little that's actually indexable. Very little, indeed. With Twitter, it's basically the hashtags and that it. And what are hashtags? Basically spam. So, I've always had people who touted social as the way to rank, or just using social links to rank. I'm even skeptical of links outside of Google Plus for discovery. I think it's all taken with a grain of salt outside of Google Plus.
Zara says she agrees. It's difficult trying to find somebody to pass to handle a website. It's a mix, isn't it, Zara? Because on the one hand, some people that really know their stuff, but on the other hand, they probably want somebody cheaper than that. Because myself, Terry, there's no shortage of good SEOs. It's just, are they going to be willing to pay for a good SEO? Because if they're not, well, yeah, you are down to somebody who is learning, and that's why it's cheap. You're subsidising their education. It's tricky. It's tricky.
That's actually who most of the people that I work with now, regularly, Ammon, are people that I'm working at a reduced rate. I'm basically trying to pass on what I know to them, and that's why I'm doing it. Because if I was just doing it for the money, these weren't the clients that I'd be looking for, but they're the ones that I'd be taking because I'd rather work with them than big companies, and you make more money, but once you got a roof over your head and food on the table, everything else is gravy, so I don't worry much past that. Can't take it with you. My goal is to die broke. I mean, as in, don't owe anybody, don't have anything to take with me. That's the ideal. Zero sum.
It's obviously you've been subject to Jedi SEO mind tricks. These are not the clients you're looking for. Hey, Jeff. Jeff's looking like he's in the outdoors today, which is nice. It seems to be right, even if you're wearing the heavy coat.
No, I am. I forgot to put a shirt on, so I just threw this over to cover. It's a nice day in the Bay Area, and I'm in my backyard playing with the dogs. I'm giving a half hour of their runaround time, and it's my therapy. And I did want to say real quick is on local, I'm not happy with the 3-pack because it really limits a lot of exposure, and it puts such an emphasis on you having to be one of the top 3, and instead of giving some maybe more exposure to the dogs, maybe position.
Oh, I have lost the signal there. That's the problem. Wi-Fi still isn't 100%.
Pardon?
We lost you there. It dropped out for a moment.
Yeah, I'm gonna have bad audio. I'll cut out and let you talk, Ammon. Thank you.
No problem. But good point. I mean, local. I don't know how I feel about the 3-pack either. And it's not just because when I grew up, 3-pack was what we called condoms. There's. It's smaller. It's neater. Is it part of this dumbing down? Is it, is this better for most users? Because obviously, we tend to be power users. We spend a lot of time on the internet, and I do know. One of my brothers, he has his son helping him run his Facebook page. He can't even keep up with his own Facebook page. The other one's fine with Facebook, but forget ever coming on a Hangout or something like that. And there's a lot of people who their internet use is logging into Facebook once a week or so just to see what their friends are up to. That's their internet use. And is it that they've had to simplify it for people like that? Which is fair enough.
Yeah, like I said, I'm more afraid of what may be coming. To me, it looks like if I wanted to make those service ads that they're adding very clickable, I do exactly what they're doing right now. And that's what I find bothersome, because in the end, that all gets pushed down below the fold. I also don't really care for the map. Again, pushing everything down below the fold. The 3-pack, well, here's my thoughts on that. If you were in the 7-pack, your goal should have been rise up above number 7 to get into that number 1 spot, if at all possible, right? So to me, you should have been already incentivized to get your positions above the 3 mark. But the thing is, when they made this change, if at all, that to me, you should have been already incentivized to get your positions above the 3 mark.
Now, wait till Noah gets the sound turned off. There we go.
Yeah, so, the thing was that algorithm also changed, because where we were ranking pretty good in those packs, all of a sudden we're not. So, and, I hate to say it, because I don't really believe it myself, but it seems awful coincidental that the guys getting into the packs all buy AdWords. That's only in the few niches that I looked at. I don't make a big deal of looking at massive amounts. I figure that all going to come to me eventually. Not a good use of my time to become an expert on this, because it's still changing, right? Like 2 weeks from now, could have the Google links back in, because Google is always testing what's in their SERPs anyhow. And that's what I think they're doing right now, is trying to see how these changes are going to affect those service ads. Because when you think about it, that's a huge way to monetize a SERP. And if you make it so that locally, that for a lot of people, that's going to be the only way they rank now. Because
there's this common thing, and we've all seen it over the years. Lots of people, they're just trying to promote ads, and they're just. I have never really seen that with Google. I mean, let's face it, G+ ought to have Google Ads on it, and it doesn't. There are not. They haven't even got a promote your post thing on G+. So monetizing is obviously not something Google think of immediately. It just isn't. It's something that they get nagged into doing sometimes by the people that manage the shareholder meetings. But
well, of course they're not going to want it on their communication system, because that's what it originally was. It was their internal communication. Why do they want to see ads on their internal communication?
Yeah, but they could always put a tag on it so they wouldn't see it.
True.
The thing is, there is a correlation, which isn't causation, but there is a serious correlation between people who advertise and people who do well in search, and for obvious reasons. The people who advertise are the ones prepared to spend money on search, who have made search a priority. So as well as AdWords, they are likely to have hired a good SEO company, to have put thought into SEO and time into SEO and committed budget in other ways as well. They do go together. So yeah, a lot of the time, the companies that are serious about search will do well in search. And suddenly that's not surprising at all, is it?
No.
And of course, the companies that are serious about search are very likely to be using AdWords to some degree as well, because why wouldn't you?
Yeah, we have just started. I just started telling clients to do like the branding kind of stuff just to increase their visibility. Because increased visibility does at some point affect your rankings. I'm convinced of that. Just because it may cause people to do a search in Google on your brand, etc. Right? All those things are known to increase your rankings. So it's not causal, it's not direct, but a lot of things in web promotion are not direct. I mean, social is a huge example of that. At some point, you have to believe that just having that visibility is important.
It's interesting that Rand, did you see recently, he posted, look, I used to say this was a great thing for link building, and do you know what? I was wrong, and here's why I was wrong about social. Now, obviously, you know that I was talking about this a little while ago and saying, look, most of those links do not count. Yes, sometimes being on social gets you in front of the people who make useful links, but do you know what? There's other ways of getting in front of them too. They're just as likely to read the newsletters that they subscribe to. They're just as likely to read certain blogs, and being linked in those places is just as likely, if not more so, to get you the link. Sometimes when you see a thing all over social media, the last thing you want to do is add to the noise. You feel like everyone's seen it. You don't feel like, you know, oh, well, my followers probably have seen this. And you get less mentions and retweets and things sometimes when a lot of people who've got a big following do it.
Yeah, I was the only one who shared that article by Rand about his mistake with or misguided tips on social. I was the only one who shared it, and I only shared it to say basically he's finally, admitting that it was bad information. Or
it's funny that a whole bunch of social media people didn't want to share it.
Misguided information, which, is one of my problems with the mosques. They have a lot of that kind of stuff.
Like, what do you mean, what kind of? Like, what do you mean? Because I've been trying to figure out.
They brought out a tool for exploring links, right? Well, they came to the conclusion that having .edu got a boost. Well, no, EDUs get a boost because of the authority that's built into them being on the internet for 20 years, for having accumulated links for 20 years. Not Google saying, oh, it's a .edu, it's better. That's what they were kind of saying.
Oh.
I totally, even at the time, said that's totally bad. That's wrong.
It's misleading.
There was a bit to that. When you're doing machine learning, I've talked about Bayesian filtering in the past, which is using Bayes probabilistic methods of calculating things. Well, if a lot of links that end in .edu tend to be good links, then that can have a machine learning algorithm automatically putting extra weight on .edu, .gov, things like that. And so there was some solid reasoning behind that assumption. Of course, you need to test it. And of course, it doesn't mean that you can put up rubbish on a .edu and it's going to do well, because the negative factors on the content are still going to be counting as well, and they're going to counteract any positive of a .edu, because we know Google has over 300 ranking factors, well over, and that's the ones it calls ranking factors. Never mind the background signals that get combined to become one of those ranking factors.
I think one of the most important things to wrap your head around is like causation versus correlation.
Never put the two together.
Right.
Always keep them separate. I never think because everyone who's in #1 has posted on Facebook that that's how they got there, or it had anything to do with it, right? I've never ever believed that correlation is causation. I need to see a lot more than correlation to say, okay, I'm going to actually chase this. And that's why I don't rush to get on things like Blab and etc. Because, 24 hours in the day, of which I work too many. So every hour I have to be productive for things to work. So that's why I don't do those things.
Hey Zara, how are you?
Hi, I'm fine. But I am struggling with someone who has a large website.
How large is large?
4,000 pages.
Okay.
With lots of problems. It's a mess, essentially. And sent a proposal in to fix everything, blah, blah, blah. And it was just what you were talking about, and it's like they would, oh my God, I don't have that money, so what can I do myself? And, this is a professional, like a medical professional. And I'm like, well, here are the things you could go in one by one and fix the 301, and but that isn't, a good use of your time, or your professional time. If you really want to do those things yourself. I'm working today on,
You do have to ask them sometimes, look, you're a medical professional. If you needed a gastric bypass, would you be looking for a $2 an hour provider for that too? Or do you suddenly understand that there's a lot of things that you want and it costs money, but what you're paying for is the quality. You're paying for the actual result, and buying cheap is not a good idea.
It's not a good idea, and just a brief history on this, in 2009, 2010, they were getting like 20,000 visitors to their site using, old stuff, and then bingo, crash bang, and then then it got worse, okay, well, let's get more people to our site, so let's just crank up the ad money. Well, that didn't do anything either. It went from, like 20,000 visitors, one from an ad, to, it was like 60% of all the visitors came from ads, because organic was just saying, and now there's something that's blocking the robot's text from either. It's blocked, so pages can't even be found by the search engine. It's a mess, and so yes, it's actually what I call an education process. I think I was talking about this the other day somewhere, is that education is a big part of bringing clients on board, because they're like, well, this used to work, and so it must be a simple fix to get it back to where it was in 2010. Well, no, it's not. But they don't want to hear it, and they don't have the money, theoretically. And it's an education process. It's a huge education process.
Yes.
The fact they don't have much money is probably a benefit. When
I don't know what not much money means. I want a number, and I'm not getting a number yet. because it's a successful practice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I always start by, you may have a list of 10 things, but the smart guy does one thing, looks at the results, does another thing, looks at the results, because then you can actually isolate where the problems are. If you try and fix everything at once, you'll never really know what the dealio was.
Right. Well, there are really a lot of problems, but the basic intro to my it's not even a proposal, it's a rebuttal. That's what I would call it, riposte, is that, from this day forward, start thinking semantically about your website. And, if you get that long list of things to do, the first thing is to make the landing page, the page people see first, address their issues. Not, we are really cool.
Yeah. People
then,
don't want to know your accreditation until they know that you can help them.
You're a professional. People already know you've jumped through the hoops.
With the client, and when dealing with clients, like, this is why I have my reputation, and when you come to me, yep, we will talk about what you need, and you are going to pay for that time, because it is an education process. If you've been educated, I'm not having to do the work, and that's fine, and we can have a discussion. But
Right.
if I'm going to have to educate you, that's billable.
Okay, I'm cool with that, because I really feel that way. And it's like, and I have, with my author clients, they're way into this, because I do that education process with them. You want me to help you with create space or whatever it is they're dealing with, and it's like, here's the time it's going to take, and I can do this for you. So, what's your PayPal address?
Yeah.
Essentially, because it's not big stuff, it's little stuff. But yes, the education is a huge part of it. It's thank you, Ammon. I thank you, because it's such an intangible. There isn't a thing that goes, push this button, results happen. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It is one of those things. I wrote on a post just yesterday that somebody was saying, oh, well, in our industry it doesn't tend to work that way. And I said, look, I don't give specific advice on social media for a specific. That's what I charge for. I give general advice, and the general advice is this: I can say this in your niche, but that's as close as you're going to get for free. If you want a specific answer tailored for you, that's chargeable, and that's something. When you're doing this education process, never shortchange yourself. Don't be your own competitor. Don't be competing with what you charge for. Give away a lot of stuff for free to show the value, to show that you know what you talk about. Fine, but make sure it's general. Make sure it appeals to a lot of people. Make sure it's something that's a conversation opener rather than a conversation closer.
That's valuable.
Don't give them the answer, give them a better question.
Really great. Thank you so much. I've been, I look at this, I've been working on it this morning, and I look at it and I'm like, how much am I going to tell this fellow without, giving away
the cow.
Giving away free work is what it is. What does that say, Michael? Shane David?
Good clients agree folks have value and would not want to deal out respect for you. They want you to thrive as they would.
Thank you.
Absolutely right. And any client who isn't getting that isn't a client. Get them out the door, get them away from you as fast as possible, because anything you're not making money on is still a cost to you. The time you are spending on somebody who isn't spending money with you is time you could be spending on somebody who is, or somebody that will. It's what we call an opportunity cost.
Yep.
This is why you simply cannot afford to do too much free education. Do what you can because you want to make the world a better place, but don't do it for them. Do it because you want to make the world a better place. That you're doing it for
That
you.
makes a lot of sense, yes. And so it's the generic answers generally in your field, as it were. But, you know, for your site, here's my rates.
Exactly that.
I don't care for people who basically, like you said, rebut what I say. I don't need to debate my clients over what's going to be done. They either follow what I say or I don't need them. They aren't clients at all. To me, people are going to be out the door as soon as somebody else convinces them that they know more. And that's no way to work. People got to trust that you know what you're doing. And that's why I always do things in very small contracts. Something that takes me 3 or 4 hours, then we negotiate the next thing I'm going to do, especially on a job like this, because what you're doing is proving to them as you go that what you're giving them sound advice, because they're seeing the positives from each layer that you peel off and fix. And as long as you keep doing that, they'll quit. You'll gain trust with them, and all the rebuttals stop, because basically
that's what I find with my writing clients. You know, this is a little more complicated because I am not an SEO expert. You know, and this is a whole bunch of people involved.
Experts don't claim to be experts because you're all.
Well, I mean, I understand because it's not even my area of expertise, as it were. You know what I mean? So I have to bring technical people on board to do the technical part. But
every good SEO is a lifelong student because it's evolving. You never feel, oh, I've learned it all, because you haven't.
Because it's changed yesterday and this morning.
Yes, and even the things you've done today have in some way pushed your knowledge of the field forward, or you're treading water. Every single campaign I do for clients, even today, 20 years into this, hundreds of clients into this, thousands of campaigns into this, every single campaign I learn something new that I'm going to take into tomorrow's campaign and the campaign of the day after that.
Exactly. Yeah, that's true. Ammon, I want to be wherever your background is. I want to go there. Exactly what I need today.
It looks like there's going to be some like elves peeking around the corner. I know elf magic right now.
We've got you for the pixie effect, Kristin. You know,
Pixie was last week.
Oh,
This week it's the distressed damsel.
So there's two things here. The first, a lot of small businesses struggle over pricing. Oh, I don't want to be too expensive, blah, blah. The first thing that you have to get straight as a consultant, as a small business, as an advisor to anybody, look, if you don't look after your own business, you won't be in business and you can't help anybody. If you don't look after your business will fold and all the good you've been hoping to do won't happen. So you need to charge enough that your business is solid so that it can continue to help people and can grow and help even more people. So first, realize that survival of your business is the only way to make those good things happen. So it's not greed. This is actually the core of the generosity. If you give away everything you got in the wrong ways to the wrong people, it doesn't do any good. It's one of those people who, oh, we haven't got any water, so you go and hire a ship to bring bottles of bottled water over. That's not going to be the most effective way of doing it.
Exactly.
Now, you could drill 100 wells. That's not bad. But do you know what is the most effective way to give everyone water? Train more engineers in those countries so they know how to get their own water, how to filter their own water, and solve the problem forever. And they're going to be employing people to do that. So, knowing how you're spending resources is always a big part of things. Don't underestimate your value. Understand that if your business doesn't survive, it doesn't help people. So the first step to helping people isn't to give away lots of stuff for free. It's to look after your business so it can keep helping people onward and onward and onward. And if you grow, you can employ more people, and then you're helping your clients and you're helping your workers. So that's part one. And the second
Kind of
thing
like
is
That I so agree with that. I just revamped. I mean, I've been swamped with work, but I really revamped my thinking in the last 2.5 months or whatever it is that the value of, in this case, what I have to offer is valuable. And just what I said earlier, it's fine. If you don't want to pay me, people are like, well, I don't have a big budget and I need you to be really cheap. And I'm like, nope, this is it. If I've already shown you how I can help you achieve whatever the goal is, so it's in sales it's called the takeaway. Fine, if you don't want to do it, fine. And I haven't had anybody say no.
And the second part is about cheap SEOs. There's a reason that SEOs cost what they do, and it's simply this. You are competing with what they can earn just doing this for themselves. A good SEO can build a blog and have it advertising driven and earn a lot of money.
Yep.
He has to charge enough to be worth an equivalent income, because if it isn't, he may as well do that. So when you've got a cheap SEO, they're showing you what they think is more than they could earn any other way. And if they're charging $19 a day, this means they couldn't even flip burgers for a living.
Exactly.
Seriously, it is that like
yeah,
that.
I know.
A good SEO can easily earn, I have seen 6-figure a month incomes from affiliate programs alone without breaking sweat. I have seen people getting 6 figures a month just on AdWords and AdSense. Now,
like $100? No, that would only be $1,000.
we are talking the 100,000, 200,000 mark.
Yeah,
Oh.
Yeah.
that's what he was
Per
saying.
month.
I know that, but
Yeah. We're not even counting the cents.
that's all I wanted to point out.
That's up to people. They can add cents. So, they've got to be charging an amount that is kind of reassuring in the first place. Beware of cheap SEOs, because obviously they don't feel they could earn more any other way.
I think that's true, and that's another part of the education process. If somebody had or has an SEO, who is doing them a disservice rather than a service.
Yeah.
Because they're saving money.
I mean,
so many people got hit with Penguin.
there are
But
some
they paid
exceptions.
Yep.
I don't like the affiliate space. I can do it and I can make some money at it, but I don't enjoy it. So I'm actually one of those who's prepared to take a little bit of a hit to be working on the projects I want to be working on, because I can still make a living. So I'm actually a little bit cheaper as an SEO than I probably could be.
Cheaper than you preach?
Sorry?
Cheaper than you preach?
A lot of people do tell me that they are surprised I'm not 3 to 5 times as much as I am. And I've had people tell me off. You're massively undercharged. No, I'm not. I get the clients I want to get. It's enough of a fee to put off the tire kickers, the ones that are just wasting your time. It's a serious commitment amount, so I get the clients who are serious about committing, but it's cheap enough that I can still help people that I want to be helping.
Right. I'll take a lot less money if I want.
Yeah, I think.
If I don't want to help you, you do not have enough money.
Yep, that's for sure.
Some clients aren't worth any amount of money.
Right. I think there was a whole Bogus Hangout about this a while back.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, about who you're going to work with.
Yeah.
But I'm on that side of the equation. It's like, you know, there's a point where however much money you want to give me is not going to make a difference.
And I think everyone does have that. There's this wonderful talk by Dan Pink, and it's from a book, but he gave a talk for TED, and there's a RSA video of it as well with the illustrations going through, and it's the surprising truth about what motivates us. Fantastic presentation, and it talks about the fact that, you know, people who work hard for a living then go home and work on Mozilla for free. You know, how some great programmers are out there making open source software for free. Why? And it's partly about the challenge, it's partly about the autonomy, it's partly about steering your own destiny. But they did find that at a certain point of income, for creatives, more income doesn't make them more creative, it doesn't make them more productive. It can actually get in the way. It's the things that motivate the creative thinker is much more the challenges, doing something they want to be doing, something that they feel good about doing. So, good recommendation. Catch that if you can. Omi adds, I want to work with nice people. Omi. Well, that's 99% of the population wiped out there. You go.
The other thing, though, is if you look at what agencies charge, I mean, I can understand why people think that we're not charging enough when you look at what agencies charge. I don't know. To me, I've always looked at when you hire an agency, you're paying for them to drive a Mercedes, have a nice office, and that's why you're paying more. You're not paying more because you actually get better work. You're paying for availability, basically.
Oh my goodness, there was an Isusi long ago, remember them? Conversation about that one too.
Can you guys hear me?
Hey Fab, how are you doing?
Yeah.
Can you hear well?
No, I'm seeing a black. I see you in the film studio. Ah, there you are.
Okay, but can you hear me out of the camera? I'm in the library, and I guess.
Looks like you've got low bandwidth issues, or it could be processor issues.
Yeah,
Every time your video goes main screen, it gets lost.
It's really blurry or lost. Can you go up to the top and adjust the bandwidth?
If necessary, turn off the camera. Just click on the little camera thing, turn it off, and it lets you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes.
That's better.
Yeah, sorry. I'm on a pretty temporary setup. I'm on an iPad at home with my crappy connection. That's why all this comes together. But I think on that point of agency charging a lot, and I work for an agency where we actually do charge a lot, and I think compared to other agencies that the same client could be, at the same time there are some costs that to a degree, yes, you pay costs like a nice building. That's one of the points, and I get that. But at the same time, when we have to start working for a international, like a big corporation, sometimes, and that's why it costs a lot. We just they don't pay us for delivering the work, but also we need to take time to understand their their organization globally. So that means call globally with all the people. That means at the same time building, because when we take on such an organization, sometimes we don't know how much we can do from an SEO point of view. So it's also difficult to quote what we can do. And the beginning of the process is basically understanding what we're going to do, and basically how the client pay us to a degree is that education that we do together. So together with the client, we define what is the best thing to do for the organization, and then from there we develop what to do, and then probably that's where we define the cost and so on. But I agree that, and I also agree that for small business, I would charge a lot anyway. Not because I think is to make money, but because the learning process and that value that you give and the education it cannot be repaid. And at the same time, we had, for example, another competitor that worked on the same client, but without spending time and probably charging much less, understanding what their setup was. They wasted a lot of money in recommendation that never happened. And yeah, you have a nice checklist of things that you could do for SEO, but you don't know that the client that you're working with has got limitation because you didn't spend 2 months talking with people globally to address that. So I think it is a mix of both. At the same time, there are people that take advantage of this, and yeah, and I'm not saying no. I totally agree. Yeah.
Those default checklists that some SEO companies work with are. I want somebody to paint me this wonderful picture, and this company comes along and they say, oh, well, we do that, but we use a paint by numbers system, but we can do that. And then they do it, and it turns out it's a picture of a cat. No, I wanted this great landscape. What happened? Well, the picture we have is a cat. You know, that's the only picture we do. It's not tailored, and it really is as simple as that.
Yeah.
When I work with a client, I ask them questions. If they can't answer those questions, then I will give them a quote for finding out those answers with them and the education process. So, a client recently, they've had their site redone, they know that they want to move on, they've worked with SEOs in the past. I need to do some digging in. They've sent me a few reports, but they really don't know the current state of their site in the way that I need it reported. So it's a day of my time to go and do that investigation, to look at their backlinks, to look at what's been removed, what links have been disavowed, because it was obvious they'd been working with SEO for a while, so it was almost certain they were going to have some backlinks there that you wouldn't put out today, because 6 years ago that was the norm and everyone did it. It was fine. So there were things like that to be considered. I also wanted to really get to know their market. I want to look at your competitors. I want to do a full SWOT analysis on your website versus your competitor websites. What are you doing well? What are they doing better?
And that's where I think that's old school, right? That's how we did it because we didn't have all this data to work with. Fabrizio made a good point in that before I start with a new client, not someone where I'm just helping them over a few issues, right? I start with a site audit so I understand, you know, what's working on their site, what's not working on their site, what are their competitors doing. That's how we used to do it. We didn't just go and look and see, oh, look at all the keyword searches there. That's what we do. And, you know, we'll target that, long tail, because, you know, you can always rank there. Well, it was a half-assed way of doing things. That was not a plan. That was not a plan or a strategy. To me, you start by identifying the good, the bad, and the ugly. You cut the ugly off, you fix the bad, and go with and make the good even better. Try and, you know, improve the mousetrap.
I'm pretty sure political correctness doesn't allow you to go around cutting ugly people. I'm reasonably sure I read that. But yeah, you've got to get a good understanding of the client, and for a lot of agencies, they were completely giving that away, or they were shortcutting it. They were saying, right, we haven't got time to really go into this site, so what we'll do is we'll pitch them what we usually pitch clients in this space, and we'll assume that they're in the same position. And that's just as bad as not doing one at all. In fact, it can be worse. So yeah, a good SEO should be saying up front, the first thing we need to do is do an audit. We need to know exactly where you are. Now, if you've had an audit done by another company recently and you want to hand me that as a jumping off point, that's going to shortcut my time. That's great. That's what I mean by I ask them questions, and then if they can't answer them, I find the answers for them. But that's how you sort the education process. The ones who know what they want, I can just get on with delivering it. The ones who need me to tell them what they want and what they need, that in itself is chargeable in addition to doing that thing.
Yeah. If they're not in for a site audit, I just kind of do it on the side as part of the monthly charge, like, you know, schedule it so I'm kind of doing an audit as I go. So I look at the backlinks, do that audit, right? And that would be a one-off for that month, and do the audit so that at the end I know what's going on after a couple of months. To me, and the client is happy because they see you doing some positive stuff too. I think that where some people, they see you screwing around for a month or two on a site audit and don't think they're getting their money's worth.
No.
Of course, you know, a good site audit, there is an art to in itself. And I use the word art because different SEOs will function at different levels and different styles. There are some who are a little bit more technical, there are some who are more marketing oriented, and there are some who are Dan Theiss is quite a neuromarketer. You know, he's another one who, like me, really likes the psychological factors in play, and he's thinking about the searcher rather than the search. Whereas there are some great SEOs out there who are technical SEOs, and they know how to get every bit of juice out of the site. Now, they're not better or worse than each other. They're different. They're different flavors, and the audit that one would need to do is going to be different to the audit that another would need to do. William mentioned a moment ago a pest analysis, which that's looking at the factors on something. So it's usually more of a measurement tool for something that's already in place. So that's why he's bringing this in terms of audits. But political, economic, social, and technological factors are what you would be looking at in some things. I don't think that translates precisely to a site, but it's not bad. It's certainly another framework you can use. And as you can see, it's different to the forward planning aspect he mentions.
It's a big picture snapshot.
And it would be more searcher based.
The best thing I ever read on audits was written by Lee Odden. It was called, I got the book right here, Optimize. If you want to know about audits, beyond anything else I've ever read about audits, and he broke it down to technical, link, and social. Basically, and it covers all aspects of website development and promotion. Very good book to read on that subject.
Yeah, let me just drop that link in the reference in the event, so people have got it.
Is it an affiliate link?
So people know I used to work with at Top Rank.
I like Lee. We finally got to meet at London SES a few years ago. We did a panel together on the holistic integrated marketing, and this was just becoming a thing, but it's something that he and I had both seen that the C-level execs were much more interested in. They're spending budget in a lot of different places, and nobody was bringing it together or making the parts work together. Your TV ad agency didn't know your digital agency. Your digital agency maybe didn't include your SEO company. The SEO company may not include the AdWords specialist who works in-house. And getting them all to be working together and communicating together effectively is its own issue, and it was a newish issue. It shouldn't have been, but it was, and that was kind of where we talked about. Anyone who's been following me generally over the last few years, you'll know that tying it all together is something that absolutely is fundamental for me, and it was a session I really enjoyed. And yeah, Lee was great on that. His book, Optimize, very good one, good starting point, and up there with Eric Eng and crew doing the art of SEO. There's a lot of useful stuff in that too.
Yeah, I found Lee really his thoughts on how you do an audit and how you break it down and why you're doing it. It was a really good read.
His flow seems to be really really good. I like his flow.
I've got to bring this one up by Michael Shane David. Regarding value again, you teach people how to treat you by what you allow, what you stop, and what you reinforce. Tony Gaskins. Absolutely. Yeah, there is a certain somebody I have tried to explain this to in the past, isn't there, Kristin?
This whole entire thing can be like equated to mothers who don't take care of themselves, and people stuck in domestic violence who shouldn't be stuck. Yeah, there's a lot of crossovers for this knowledge in this hangout.
There is an old saying about forgive and forget, and I hate it. I hate that saying. Look, here's the real truth. You can either forgive or you can forget. You should never try and do both. If you've forgiven, you don't need to forget because you remember that you forgave.
Right.
If you forget, there's no need to forgive because you can't remember what the hell it was anyway. That you don't need both. And sometimes, say you've been in this position where you've been mistreated, whether it's a client, whether it's a domestic situation. Forgiveness is not prosecuting them. It's not going back. That would be forgiving and forgetting what you've learned. Don't do that. Forgive. Say,
you know what I call it? I call it forgive and remember.
Yeah.
Because that's great. You can forgive them, but you remember what happened and how it affected you. And in order to make change and bring change in your life, you need to remember in order to change what you are doing so that it doesn't happen again. Because forgetting is hiding under the table and going, oh, I forgave them. That doesn't resolve the issue. The issue is remember and learn how to respond differently.
Yeah.
So I don't. Okay. All right. I got on a soapbox.
Soapbox.
There is the possibility. It's not a major offence against you. You may go back to that relationship with that client, with that person, whichever it is, and say, okay, that doesn't happen again. We forgive. We will carry on working this way, but you remember. There's times when you say, okay, maybe that was an anomaly, but we remember it.
You remember, yeah.
You've got to. But if you forgive it, what should have happened isn't going to happen. We're not going to pursue this. We're going to let that lie. It's going to be forgiven, and I'm coming back to you. That's sending the wrong message. This is teaching people how to treat you. It's saying that no matter what, you're going to double forgive them double forgive them, which is kind of like, I forgive you and I'm asking for the same again.
Yeah, well, that's what Michael Shinde said. That quote is like, you know,
Yeah.
Okay, you know, that's it. Here's the line. You adjust. I know what my position is. You adjust. You can stay or leave. It's up to them, you know, because you are setting the limit.
There's a guy years ago.
But Kristin's right. It does transfer over from personal to business. It's the same methodology, if you will.
There's a guy years ago who taught me this, and he was one of those clients that when you were negotiating, he negotiated hard, and he would keep pushing for that lower price. Now, it's me. You can guess that that didn't necessarily get very far. And, you know, I put a block on this quite early. I said, look, my rates are based on the fact that I don't spend a lot of time on my sales process. You know, I don't want to be spending 2 days sorting out the contract. I want to make you an offer, you take the offer, I get on with the work. There's no time in that, so I don't have to charge for it. If you want to have this going backwards and forwards and haggling, that's great. We can enjoy it, but you're going to find the price goes up because I've got to cover that time somewhere. And he said, oh, well, you know, don't take offense. I said, no, I'm not doing that. He said, you do understand, it's my job within this company to get the best possible deal I can. It's my job to push. If I don't, I'm not doing my job. And I said, absolutely no problem with that, but it's also your job to get the best deal, and it's my job to let you know as a client that if we spend more time on this, the deal's going to get worse because I'm going to have to start charging you for the time.
His job is actually to get the best price without really hurting. Like when you get to the point where you have to charge him more because he's trying to get something for less, he's not doing his job. He actually did his job poorly.
So where that ties back is, look, you are that guy for your business. It is your job to get the best deal for your business that you can. If you don't do that, you aren't working for your business. Fire yourself and hire somebody who can.
Yeah. I also have personally, I don't haggle. I give you a price, that's it. If you want to discuss doing less work for less money, that's fine. But I'm going to give you what I feel I'm worth to you. So we don't have to haggle about price. And if you want to do that, life's too short. You're going to be down the road someone that I'm going to regret saying yes to. So, you know, I guess that's just so long in doing business and understanding that mindset that it don't work with me. So I just walk like, you know, life's too short. Like I said, 24 hours in a day, it's limited. My time working is limited. And once that my pipe is full, I don't expand it. I'm only willing to work so many hours a day. Was a day I'd work till I frickin' drop. Not anymore.
Exactly. And that is coming back to that quote again, and what we were talking about earlier about the education process, that the only way your client is going to respect your time is if you respect your time and you show that you respect your time and you communicate that clearly early so they get it.
Yeah. I think that also that's where trust becomes very important, because generally people that already work with you and trust you, the negotiation becomes smoother, and at the end you don't waste much time doing the job. Sometimes we ended up, obviously it was for a very large job, people that were kind of hardcore into the negotiation, and they had like a full team, like 4 or 5 days a quarter, trying to plan and negotiate, and whether we could have worked with that time for them. And at the end, you know, when you have that trust, you skip that phase. You know that I'm probably trying to suggest what is bad for your company rather than trying to get money out of you. And
we are over the hour, so I am going to start winding this up. let's find out what everyone's up to in the week ahead. We'll kick off with you, Terry.
I'll finish up working on my local SEO article and probably do a little programming on a community on buildings. So
Cool.
that'd be sweet.
I was hoping you were going to skip me.
No. What are you up to this week?
Someone's coming over, sheriff, and between 2 and 3, get some things. I need to make some phone calls to some shelters. That's what I'm going to be doing.
Zara, what are you up to this week?
Oh my gosh, I'm in the midst of I'm working with several authors, and I'm working on script editing for someone and book editing. I just finished formatting a couple of books, so I'm working on another one, getting that one ready. It's a lot of reading and editing and then the fiddly fixing of formatting. Pretty much where I'm going. And writing for myself. So, I'm a busy girl.
I do find sometimes, though, that does come about. When you read more by others, it can help inspire your own thinking and your own writing.
Exactly.
Because you do get frustrated when somebody writes, I wouldn't write it like that, and you suddenly think of a great thing you'd like to write. Exactly. Don't try and turn somebody else's work into that. Save it. Use this as your own writing. Exactly.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
How about you?
Wow, that was fun. Thank you, Ammon.
Yeah, it's going to be another early week because I have another wedding back home, so I'm flying to Italy on Thursday. Just wrapping up the week. We're into a kind of proposing what we're going to do next year with one of the clients. It's a bit early, but it's better to start early because you always end up late. And yeah, that's what I'm trying to wrap up. But yeah, will be a nice week, hopefully.
Yeah, excellent. Well, thanks for joining us, everyone. As always, we'll probably carry on in the green room for a while, but that's us live for this week. Take care.